Welcome to NCBI Labs. So you're very welcome to this week's live event. We have our regular panel of Daniel Dunn, JP Corcoran and Sean Dorn with us on the show this week. And we're staying right up to date with news and discussion about the technology that makes a difference to you. Of course, this week, technology has been very much mainstream news here in Ireland. There's been a lot of coverage already of the cyber attack on the HSE and the Department of Health as well. And understandably, a lot of people are concerned about what exactly that means and what the possible results of that could actually be. So we're going to talk a bit about that on our live event today, cyber attacks and ransomware and what that is and how to keep yourself protected from it as well. So that'll be coming up shortly on the show. A little bit later on, we're going to be catching up with Dominique Farrell in our Seeing It Your Way piece and see if you can spot which side of the Apple versus Android debate Dominique is on. She makes it fairly clear, I think, in our interview. That's coming up a little bit later on as well. And on top of that this week, we have a bit of a taster for you of something else that NCBI will have for you very shortly. Labs trainer Miriam Kelly has been putting together a series of short training videos on various topics, and they'll be available soon on the NCBI YouTube channel. We're going to give you a little bit of a taster of one of those videos today to show just what will be available in the coming weeks and months. And of course, later on in the show, we're going to have our usual quick tips and tech help sections as well. So plenty to talk about on the show today. And don't forget that if there are any questions that you'd like answered relating to today's topics or any other topic as well that you'd like us to cover, you can get in touch by emailing us at labs@ncbi.ie, or you can use the question panel on the right hand side of Teams if you're connecting through Microsoft Teams. But first of all, we're going to move into our main kind of subject of discussion this week, what you need to know, ransomware and cyber attacks. And as we said, this is kind of very topical at the moment with the attacks, with the cyber attack on the HSE, particularly within the last few days. We're just going to have a bit of a discussion about how we can kind of get to grips with that a little bit, I suppose. What does it actually mean? And how can we protect ourselves from it? And we're going to have our regular panel on to discuss that. So we've got Sean and Daniel and JP with us to talk about that this week. So maybe just to start off with, could you fill us in a little bit with why exactly this is such big news, the ransomware attack in the last few days?
Yeah, sure. I can maybe fill us in a little bit on that, if you don't mind. So I think a lot of our listeners will be aware that last Friday morning, early in the morning, 4 a.m. in fact, the HSE was made aware of what they called a significant cyber security attack involving ransomware on its IT systems. So in response, what they did was they shut down their national and local IT systems in order to protect them from further from the attack. The attack itself was described by the HSE as human operated, and it's using a new variant of what's called the CONTI, C-O-N-T-I ransomware, which I think we're going to be talking about in a little more detail in a while. So since the attack took place on Friday, though, Jude, it's estimated that 85,000 computers have been shut down and that have access to the HSE's IT systems. So they've been turned off as a precaution as the systems are being cleared and one by one assessed by the HSE's cyber security teams, making sure that they're going to be safe before they're switched back on. But this, of course, has led to a lot of significant service disruption within the HSE, and that's for both patients and for healthcare staff. So, for example, the health service has been forced to cancel almost 20,000 hospital appointments and operations, along with several A&E departments having to divert patients to other units. Some hospitals, because they can't access the electronic systems, have actually had to rely on paper records for patients. Yeah. Others have warned of routine appointments being cancelled, as well as like scans for like maternity scans and checkups. A lot of people are asking about COVID vaccinations as well. I was looking at this morning on the HSE site. COVID-19 vaccinations and tests are going ahead, but there might be some delays in getting your COVID-19 test results. I think as well, like I've listened to kind of a few interviews as well from patients as well who've been affected by this attack in terms of delays to their appointments. And when you bring in the human element of it, it is very it's awful, I suppose, when you hear about maybe patients who are undergoing treatment for cancer and how much it's impacting them. So there's a human side of this as well.
Yes, yeah.
Interestingly, I was looking at as well that this isn't the first time this sort of attack has happened on a health service, albeit not ours. So if you go back to, I think it's 3 years ago, 2017, the UK's National Health Service, NHS, was exposed to a ransomware attack, not too dissimilar to this one, and affected dozens of NHS hospitals, and it cost the NHS several millions of pounds in damages. But we can hope that this situation in the HSE will be resolved soon, with a return to normal service quite soon. I know in the meantime, for anyone who does have queries about it, the HSE are advising people to access the health services option information page, and it's www.hse.ie and /health-services-disruptions. So if you have any queries about maybe your hospital appointment or COVID vaccination appointment, then you can visit that site and check the latest updates.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to to take in, I suppose, with everything that's happening with that, but definitely causes for concern there. It might kind of help us just to understand the situation a little bit more if we get into the idea of what actually ransomware is, and maybe the different types of ransomware. What are we talking about when we're talking about these kind of cyber attacks?
Yeah, I suppose it's Daniel here, Jude. I suppose what you're talking about generally is piece of software, and often it can come in the form of an email attachment purporting to be from somebody you know. So already the your guard is down because you're trusting it could be a family member whose computer has been took over, and they're emailing you, so you say, oh, that's my friend down the road or whatever, and you get this email and the attachment. And what happens is, unfortunately, the guys who make this, they're relying on you to have your guard down. You open that little attachment. It could be an innocent, it might appear to be an innocent looking Word file or something like that. And what it does then is it starts, it gets into your system, and it starts like putting a padlock on all your files. So it can be particularly disruptive, I suppose, for the likes of the HSE, sensitive data and all that is held. Businesses, small, medium enterprises, maybe they have a database of all their customers, and next thing that file is locked. And basically, it's like somebody coming into your house and putting a padlock on all your kitchen presses, and you're there, God, I need my food. You say, well, we'll give you the key if you give us, £1,000 or something like that. So that, I suppose, that's the best way of describing what has happened here. So all these files they start getting encrypted, and they demand then payment, usually in what a new phenomenon, I suppose, that's people might have been hearing more and more about, is Bitcoin. Bitcoin is untraceable, so it's not like it's done through banks or anything like that. It's untraceable. So whoever gets the Bitcoin, they're generally going to be in lands thousands of miles away and virtually untraceable.
So
that's in other words, what happens.
Yeah. So if the ransom is paid, kind of thing, if the money is given, then there's no way of tracking that, or that's it. It's kind of money down.
Yeah. And even if you do go along, let's say you do have a few quid in the back pocket, and you're willing to buy a bit of Bitcoin to pay this ransom, there's still no guarantee that you are going to get your key or your code to unlock all your personal data. Because really what you're dealing with is high-end criminals, and who just happen to operate in the cyber world, as opposed to out amongst us in plain sight. Yeah. So there's no guarantees that even if you do hand over these sums of money or these Bitcoins, that you are going to get your files unlocked. So it really is, you're really into the deep unknown there.
And there is quite a different there's a lot of different types of ransomware, as JP said. This one's currently the Conti variety, and then we have people that heard of WannaCry or CryptoLock or GoldenEye or Locky. Like, there's literally dozens and dozens of these things online. And like Daniel was saying, like, they're either crypto virus or they're malware, and they will either basically put an encryption on files that you really need access to, or it'll block out your entire system with a password, so you can't even get into your system. So on the HSE level, or an organization's that big, it's going to block out a lot of patient data, like JP was saying. It's going to stop people from getting a scan because they can't see your previous scan, or stop you from getting that type of operation. But even on a personal level, very, very improbable that it would happen to an individual, but there is a possibility. And like, what they would do is they'd block out your files, or they'd block your computer completely, or maybe you're working on a novel and they've encrypted your entire novel, and then you have to buy that back.
Yeah. So it can really have kind of devastating effects, really, I suppose, because if the data is no longer accessible. Is that what's happening with most of these things? Is it that it's the access to the data that's no longer there, or is the data destroyed, or how does that work usually?
Well, if the data was destroyed, you wouldn't pay any ransom at all. So they're holding it at ransom. So the data still exists, it's still on your machine, but there's an encryption password that you don't have the password to. So you can't get into your patient files, or on a personal level, you can't get into your family photographs, or so if you're writing a book, you can't get into your book because they've put an encryption password that you need to pay for. Or as Dan was also saying, like, they can block access to your entire machine. So you boot up Windows and you get a black screen saying, you have been blah 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 by this blah blah blah, and then there'll be a text box to enter the password. So you have to provide that password to them.
And I believe there's the other side of this as well. That it's not just that the data is being encrypted. There's kind of another element to it sometimes with these ransomware attacks, and it's one of the things that's been maybe on people's mind as well recently.
They can threaten to publish stuff.
That's it. Yeah. So is that what's happening?
Someone who's famous or someone like that, like they,
or
a high person profile.
Yeah.
And a large organization wouldn't want their clients' names or addresses printed. So I don't think that's going to happen. But that's kind of a threat that's used against people, and these attacks are kind of orchestrated through, as we've kind of alluded in the past, like through phishing attacks or malicious downloads or compromised credentials. And you'd use like a phishing attack, or maybe to pose as a certain website, and then you log in and they have your details for logging in. So that's why we can discuss like how there's a number of ways to work around if you've lost your kind of if your credentials have become compromised. And it's something that we all kind of start hearing about in terms of MFP, like multi-factor protection. So we can kind of go into like things like that in a few minutes if you'd like, Jude.
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, just kind of thinking about that, I suppose, what is the response to something like this? So there's a cyber attack or a ransomware attack, and whether it's the current one at the moment with the HSE, or whether it's a personal one, what can be the response? What can be done about something like that?
Well, like it depends on how much you're prepared for something like this, and that's key to everything, because we all should be updating our antiviruses regularly, run scans, make sure we have all the latest patches and downloads for our operating systems. Always have the latest operating system installed, so there's less vulnerability in your machine. And then from there, it's always good to maybe back up your files maybe off your computer. Like we all used to save to floppies or CDs. You can still save to a CD. You can save to cloud storage on a different account, so that you have your files backed up. So if your computer is compromised, you can actually, if your computer was locked out, you can wipe your computer, run a cleaner on it, try and remove anything that's virus related or malware related on it. You start with a clean version of Windows, but even if you recover Windows, your files will still be encrypted. So that's why if the files are still encrypted by the attacker, that's why we would always have a backup somewhere else, especially important files.
So for something like that, just the sort of simplicity of having a backup, is that more problematic for big organizations, for example? So when people are listening to this and they're maybe thinking about a ransomware attack and how newsworthy that's been over the last number of days, would the HSE be likely to have that that kind of information backed up? Is it as simple as that? That oh, sure, there's your backed up information. We'll just go to that.
Yeah, and maybe like with a hospital, I don't know, like maybe like backed up information. Even if that's a few days out or a few weeks out, they could be missing certain vital pieces of information. So I'm not sure how they would handle a backup, and an organization such as large as that would have, you know, tons and tons of information to back up. But on a personal level, as in ourselves, we can back up things quite easily and regularly, and we can definitely, like, from that point of view, we could be prepared if we ever got on the very, very, very unlikely event that an individual was held with ransomware. You know, if they blocked out your computer and we can wipe the computer and have a backup of these files somewhere else, you know, you're completely safe. If they're threatening to post stuff online, that's a different thing. Like maybe you started writing a book, or you started writing something, and they're going to post that online, and you might lose copyright entitlements to it or something like that.
Yeah.
That's where you'd worry. But in terms of your own computer and backing up, that's quite simple to do. Yeah,
absolutely. Would there be an issue with some? I suppose again, you're talking about big organizations, but even if they've got a backup, can the network itself be kind of a problem to be able to? Because I suppose with something like the HSE service, you're not just talking about one location having a standalone computer with your backed up files that you can access. You're talking about kind of quite a lot of networked information.
It depends which machines they have locked out. They could have vital server machines completely locked out now, and maybe the information that you can't retrieve because it's all blocked. There's a number of ways that, I mean, like this isn't straightforward for an organization once it's set in.
Yeah.
So that they will have a lot of things to do, but I mean, this has happened to organizations before, and they have got around to it. But from a personal level, an individual, it's much easier to kind of account for.
Yeah, very good.
And that's why we started adding things like, you probably, like with your banking, to have two-factor authentication and multi-factor, so that when you log into your account and you put in your password, it sends a message off to maybe like a text message or on an app saying it's just you trying to log in, and then you say yes. Because that means if I happen to lose my email address and password to an attacker and they try to log into my system, they still have to get that authentication from me to say, well, that was me trying to log in.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that, you know, everyone should start looking into, maybe multi-factor authentication for certain websites and apps.
Very good. Yeah, good advice. Yeah, very good. And I suppose we might just even come back to that in a second as well. Just the idea of, like, if we were to give some takeaway points to definitely take away from this and protect yourself from this kind of attack. Here are a few takeaway points. We'll come back to that in a minute. But just what happens if it's actually already happened to somebody? So let's say tomorrow somebody's heard this piece on the live event, and then tomorrow they find this message on their laptop saying that your files have been encrypted. You're going to have to contact us to pay a ransom. Should they do that, or what sort of approach should they take to that?
Well, probably much like the HSE, you shouldn't be paying ransom to these people. It just encourages them to do it to other people. I know people are desperate to get certain files back and to do, but if we have followed procedures, and maybe you just want to cut your losses and say, well, I don't care, I'm going to lose these photographs, or I'm going to lose that document, and I'm not paying an encryption ransom, I'm just going to start again. Then you'd have to change all the passwords to all your accounts, or even maybe start new accounts. It just depends on how much you want to kind of start over. But I mean, like, deleting your Windows and starting again and removing the ransomware is a good start. And then it just comes up to then your files. Are you willing to lose them, or have you got them backed up?
Yeah, very good. And I guess as well with any of these sort of things, I think even with the HSE, they'll be taking on quite a lot of kind of advisors with it, that they'll come out with a statement saying that they're not going to pay a ransom, which is, I guess, kind of their standard procedure in a way. But it's not it's not something where there's a set response to every single type of ransomware or malware, I guess. Take advice would be probably quite a good thing to do at any given point.
Yeah, and like organizations like NCBI ourselves, we updated all our equipment in the last year and a half, so all staff got newer laptops and we got increased security levels, and we've been rolling out multi-factor potential identification for all staff over the last year, and a lot of staff have it, so we'll finish everyone off now in the next few weeks. But I mean, that's the kind of things organizations have to do. You have to stay up to date with your technology, and you've often heard people giving out that they're in a job and they're still using Windows XP machines, and you're thinking, geez, that's leaving someone very vulnerable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So an organization has to spend money. It's like upkeep of a building, upkeep of your IT services.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's an old-fashioned way of looking at, when 10 years ago we spent, like, I'm just pulling figures out here. The HSE said, we spent 2 million on computers. I mean, like, you'd have to do that 5 years later. It's upkeep. I mean, it's absolutely essential.
Yes. Yeah.
So that, I think that's becoming that's people are becoming aware of that now, and obviously some organizations are a bit late on it. But IT maintenance is up most important, since all our data and information is stored there.
Yeah. Very good. So just to maybe come back to what we were saying then, if we were to kind of round up this discussion with takeaway points, maybe we could get one from each of you, if that's okay. Could we come to maybe JP first, and then Daniel and Sean?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to the point about paying this ransom. Okay, so yeah, it was recently came out that Heather Humphreys, who is the Justice Minister, she's come out. She's more or less saying that HSE won't be paying this ransom. And I think it's a very good idea not to pay it. I mean, you're leaving yourself at risk that you might not get your the ransomware removed.
Yeah.
And also, I mean, looking back here, I'm looking at some of the figures alone. Just for example, there's been research done by a Cyber Edge group to say that 57% of ransomware victims have paid ransom last year, but only 1/4 of them failed to recover their data. So again, no guarantee. In fact, the odds could be actually somewhat stacked against you. So I would say, just be cautious about going out and paying the ransomware. I know it's probably immediate reaction, say, say you want your files back, but just be cautious, weigh it up, and maybe consider the other options. I think Sean has referred to a lot of other kind of good things about make sure your antivirus software is up to date, you're running the latest version of Windows, etc. These are very good considerations.
Yeah,
absolutely. And Daniel, if we come to yourself.
Yeah, just one interesting fact now, and this data might be a little bit out of date, but in 2017 there was $5 billion US dollars made worldwide from ransomware. So it tells you it is quite a lucrative market for these high-end criminals who are involved in running this. Can be sure that that figure has probably jumped a bit further in recent years. So you can see like the damage it does, and of all the ransomware attacks out there, and I suppose to pour a bit of sympathy the way of the HSE for a change, that 45% of all ransomware attacks are at the healthcare organisations, and another emerging sector that's getting targeted is the financial services sector. So you really are, your wallet and your health is where these guys are looking to make the few quid. But as I suppose, just as we discussed there, like the best way to prevent it is to have the backup of your files. Use there's lots of free cloud backup services like your Google Drive and your Microsoft OneDrive if you have an Outlook account. Do take advantage of those. It's most people won't have a fierce amount of storage space taken up with critical files to them. So it's maybe a good idea to use some of those online services, and keep your antivirus up to date, and your Windows up to date. Go in there into the settings, go to Windows Update, check that, and install what Microsoft have sent down and recommended. So they're good ways of limiting the whack that one of these can give you.
Yeah, very good. And Sean, we'll come to you finally.
Well, just briefly, Jude, like, it's common sense. So If you get a link sent to you by email and you don't know the person, be very cautious with that link. Same with a file. If someone's sending you a file, you don't know who they are, you don't even need to open the email. I mean, use your emails, even if you're on a screen reader. Don't open the email. Let the screen reader read out the name, the subject, and a bit of the body of the email as it does. If it doesn't seem pertinent to you or it seems strange, just don't open it. Just common sense, things like that. And if you are going to links with your bank details or anything like that there, always just double check the URL just to make sure that it's not Bank of Ireland with 2 A's or something like BA. So just especially with something like as personal as that there, check your links, and we can go into segments in the future people like about how to check for these things and how to be safer about links and downloads.
Yeah, very good.
A good telltale thing as well, John, is in these emails that are sent to you, often the spelling is a little bit off, and our English might be a little bit broken. It mightn't be as fluent as as
I've got emails from you before, Daniel. I know. That's very important to look out for, because you will, like Daniel says, you will see spelling mistake or a sentence that just doesn't really, someone wouldn't say it's something like that.
Yeah. Very good.
Particularly if it's supposed to come from, it mightn't be a friend sending you the email. You could be purported to be from a business that you've dealt with, and unfortunately they've been targeted. And next thing you get an email, it could be from your local furniture shop, and you might be getting regular emails from telling them about a new piece of furniture that have in. Next thing you get this email, click here to open our new brochure, and the words are spelled a bit wrong. You think, God, that doesn't look great now for a business sending full of spelling mistakes.
I know we're kind of tight for time, but just to give you a quick anecdote, like last week I received a bank text message from my bank saying my card was being postponed due to suspicious behavior, and there was a link within the text message, and I followed the link in the text message, and even my phone said this is a bit suspicious, the security on my phone said we're not going to open this link for you because it does seem suspicious. And then I went to my bank on a separate device and checked it, and there was no issue at all. So that they are very clever, and thankfully security on my phone that was trying to prevent me even from opening that link.
Yeah, very good. So some very good kind of advice and tips to be able to keep safe as well, and stay protected from this kind of malware. So thank you very much to our panel. Thanks very much to JP and Daniel and Sean for talking to us about ransomware and cyber attacks and how to keep ourselves safe from that as well. So we're going to move on now in our live event this week to our next section, and we're going to move into our Seeing It Your Way piece. And this week we caught up with Dominique Farrell. Now, Dominique is an experienced user of assistive technology, and on top of that, she's an avid listener to our live events as well. Well, we don't need any more of an introduction than that, really. So here's this week's Seeing It Your Way piece. We have Dominique Farrell with us. You're very welcome to the show, Dominique.
Thank you very much.
Really good to have you with us on the show this week, and I know you're a regular listener of our live events, so good to have somebody on the show who's been with us from the start, really, for the live events. But we'll talk a bit more about technology and your use of technology a little bit later on in the interview. But maybe if we could start off by asking you, Dominique, could you tell us a little bit about your background, your story of sight loss?
Well, I was born with retinopathy of prematurity, which meant I was born 3 months premature, and I got 2 months oxygen in the incubator, which left me with no sight in my right eye and little sight in my left. And I went to St. Mary's School for the Blind in Marion. I learned to use the cane, which I never liked. I actually used to put the cane in the drawer at the end of school and not bring it home, because I knew I'd have to practice. And yeah, I never liked the cane at all. In 2009, I had a cataract removed from my left eye, and it gave me back about 30% sight because I had 10% with the cataract, and I never realized how bad it was until after the operation the following day, and it was just absolutely amazing what I could see, because I've always used a monocular from NCBI to look at the bus numbers and watch television. And then 2 years ago, it will be in June, my retina was damaged and I lost the sight that I had, and now I have actually no sight at all.
When you had that operation, then you had the cataract removed. That gave you, was that kind of the best period of your life in terms of the amount of vision that you had?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, yes. I mean, I didn't realize how good it was until now that I have no sight. When I had sight, I didn't realize the sight that I had was so good until it's gone. And when working with a guide dog, especially now with having Minnie, my third guide dog, I had to train with her with no sight. And with my two previous dogs, I had sight. So it's a huge difference.
So that must be, yeah, I'm just thinking that your experience there is quite an interesting one, in that you had very poor sight and then it improved and then it disimproved again. Did that in any way did it help you to adapt again when you lost your sight? Was your previous experience helpful to you, or was it almost like the opposite of that? Was it something that made it even more of a challenge because you had sight for a period of time? You had seen the improvement.
Well, I just think to have sight, no matter how bad it is, just to have it, it's better than not having it at all. I mean, I'm 48 years old, and to go through all that time with sight, and then for two years for it to be taken away, I just think it's the most cruelest thing that could ever happen. Yeah. But I mean, from getting Minnie has really made me happy again. Okay, yes, if I got my sight back tomorrow, the sight that I had, I would be very, very happy. I'd be back to my old self. But you know, there's always people worse off than yourself, and you don't appreciate what you have until it's gone.
Tell me a little bit more about maybe through your life how technology has made a difference to you.
Well, I started off using a manual typewriter, then I went to using an electric typewriter, and then when I went to NCBI, I was in the training centre twice, and I was taught how to use a computer with JAWS, and that really opened up my world. It transformed my life. I mean, now with email and Zoom and Microsoft Teams and the internet, I mean, you're in touch with people all the time. Your life is opened up to a new world. I think I started off on JAWS on 8 point something, and now I'm up to JAWS 2020. And then I'm using with Microsoft as well. I mean, using email and the internet is just brilliant, because I'm able to keep in touch with the COVID news on the RT website, and then I have the RT News app, which I keep in touch that way as well, and I get my daily notifications from RTE every evening.
Yeah.
I have, as well as my computer, I have an iPhone, I have an Apple Watch, I have AirPods, and I have the Echo Dot speaker. So technology is amazing, it really is. And as for the speaker, whoever thought a speaker would be able to speak back to you?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's interesting, just you mentioned there kind of a combination of technologies. Obviously, the laptop has been key to you because of all the different kind of applications you've used it for over the years. But you mentioned a smart speaker there. Do you use that quite a bit?
I do. I listen to RTE Gold, and I listen to music on it, and I actually access the NCBI Labs live event. If I miss it live, I listen back on the speaker.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah, very good. That's a really handy way to do it as well. And you've probably heard on our live events that we've got the whole Smart Hub project coming. I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
Yeah, I have heard about it, yeah. And I've given my name in if it's needed.
Very good, yeah. I think that'll be a really useful resource for people to be able to avail of. You've got obviously the smart speaker, you've got your laptop. You mentioned about apps there a minute ago as well. Which side of the debate do you fall on, Dominique? Is it the Apple or the Android side for your phone?
Oh, definitely Apple. For accessibility, Apple are way ahead. VoiceOver is much better. I don't like the voice on the talkback voice on Android. I find I use the male Irish Siri voice, and I think he's very good.
Well, do you know what? It's always great, whatever way somebody falls on that debate, to hear somebody have that amount of conviction, because it's obviously the right thing for you in that case.
Yeah, well, he wasn't available on the Apple Watch until Watch OS 7, and when that came out, I could download it onto my watch, and I waited for that to be available because I didn't like Moira on my watch. And now that I have the male Irish Siri voice, when I go out with Minnie, I open up the workout app and open up the outdoor walk, and after an hour's walk, when I get home, it'll tell me how far I walked and how many calories I've burned and how many beats per minute my heart was. And then it gives me stand reminders, and it tells me on the hour to stand up if I haven't stood. And you get an achievement badge if you've passed your stand and workout and activity that day. So it's a very good way to get you motivated.
Very good. So I know that some people maybe wonder whether the kind of smart watches and things like that are a worthwhile device when you've got your smartphone as well that can do so much of the same stuff. You find it very much a very useful device.
Oh, I do. I only got it last year for my birthday. Other than that, all my watches were talking watches from NCBI. But I have to say, since having the Apple Watch, it's like having an iPhone on your wrist. You can take calls, you can make calls on your watch. It's brilliant. It saves me from taking out my phone when I'm out and about, which I don't like to do.
Very convenient, definitely a very convenient piece of technology to use, yeah.
I have AirPods as well. I use them for listening to the radio on my iPhone. But generally, I just I would use my computer for emailing and surfing the internet. Where the iPhone, yeah, I would check my emails on my iPhone, but I wouldn't use the standard keyboard, the native keyboard that's on the iPhone, because I find your wrist gets tired after a while. Whereas, well, sometimes I use dictation as well, or Siri, but sometimes Siri mispronounces what you said and picks up things wrong. But yeah, the computer is brilliant now, I have to say. I love it. If it wasn't for technology with COVID, you know, I wouldn't have the life that I have. Every day there's something going on, a webinar or technology group, or the NCBI virtual tech clubs on a Wednesday. So it means that I'm not bored now because I have technology to help me, and it keeps me entertained, and it makes the day go quicker, especially when in lockdown.
Yeah, which is kind of quite an extra benefit over the last year or so. Tell us a bit more about you were saying about the tech clubs there. You join in the tech clubs regularly, do you?
Yes, I'm a part of the Dublin one with JP and Joe, and the Dublin one has actually, I could have up to 14 participants some weeks. It's a very big technology club, and what I've learned on the technology club as well is Joe does fantastic tutorials, like demonstrations each week on VoiceOver. Now, I know how to use VoiceOver, but even the Windows shortcuts, he recently spoke about using emoji on the computer, which before then I didn't know how to use emojis on the computer. And I find that's a great addition.
Yeah, very good. I think we're actually going to even look at that a little bit in our quick tips a little bit later on in the show today. So that'll be kind of, that fits in very nicely with that. So what would you say over the course of the technology clubs, has there been any particular topics that you've found have made a big impact on you?
Well, when it comes to the demonstrations with VoiceOver, I know a lot of them, but it's always useful to gain more knowledge of how to use things. You can never have enough knowledge. But I find with the NCBI Labs live event on Tuesday that I've picked up a lot from the hints, the tips that JP provides, or the useful shortcuts that I've picked up along the way.
I think a lot of people find that the quick tips and the tech help and things like that are quite useful to have. Yeah.
I'm on the website every day, and the pages that I access are news and events, technology news, podcasts and blog, and they're the 3 pages that I use regularly. I love the technology news. I like to gain more information from things that are put up, how to use different technology, because I know with iOS 14 they put up stuff on how to use it, and I'd say that they'll do the same for iOS 15 when that comes out. That'll be launched at probably WWDC in June.
That'll definitely be something that they'll be keeping an eye on as well, I'm sure. And you find the website easy enough to use?
Oh yeah, it's very easy with JAWS. Just once you know how to bring up your links and you know the letter of the page you're looking for, you just press the letter and it opens up. Yes, it's much easier than it was previously.
Very good. Well, that'll be nice feedback for the team that was working on the website anyway. So Tell me then, Dominique, obviously you've had quite a bit of experience with different technology through your life, and it's made a huge difference to you. Obviously, you mentioned there about some of the training you had with JAWS, being able to actually use a lot of the different technologies now. If you were talking to somebody who kind of was maybe either, you know, not too into technology or was just adapting to sight loss, for example, is there anything that you could say that would be, you know, good advice for somebody in that situation?
Well, when it comes to technology, I'd say don't be afraid of it, because you can't break it, or if you think you delete something, it'll always say, are you sure you want to delete? But there's a load of mediums out there now. There's technology email lists that you can subscribe to if you don't know how to do something. Or then there's NCBI labs, which are a brilliant resource. I mean, any problems I have, when I contact them, they assist me straight away. When I started out on my technology journey, NCBI Labs wasn't even available. Then, even though there were IT people in NCBI that could help you, but to have a whole wealth of knowledge in a technology team, I just think is a brilliant initiative from NCBI.
Brilliant, yeah, and it's nice to have that kind of support as well. I think confidence is such a big thing, isn't it, when you're using technology? Like you say there, just knowing that there's kind of safeguards for you, you're not going to do any major damage with your technology, but also the fact that you've got support from people. I think that's always going to help confidence.
Well, before I had an iPhone, all my phones were Nokia phones, so I never used a touch screen phone. And after having keypad phones and going to a touch screen, it was a real learning curve. But the best teacher is yourself, because if you go into explore the phone, go into all the different apps, find out what's in settings, and that's how you learn things, is by exploring things and trying to learn yourself, rather, because you're not under any time frame of wondering, I have only a certain amount of time to get this done or find this out. But when you do it yourself, you're under no pressure. And yeah, I mean, it took me a couple of weeks to get to know the iPhone 4S was my first phone. But I mean, after having a couple of iPhones after that, then once you get comfortable and confident with one iPhone, all the iPhones are the same after that then.
Yeah, it's great to kind of have that standardized approach, isn't it, sometimes? Well, it's been really good to chat to you today, Dominique. We really appreciate you coming on to the show for our Seeing It Your Way piece. And we hope to chat to you again in the future. I'm sure you'll be chatting to the guys in labs anyway in the meantime. But great to have you with us this week. Thank you very much for joining us on Seeing It Your Way.
And thank you for having me, Jude.
So that was Dominique Farrell on this week's Seeing It Your Way piece, and she's clearly a fan of the Labs team there. Great feedback from Dominique, so we appreciate that, and clearly a great fan of the Irish male voice on Siri as well. So that's I think it's clear which side of the Android Apple debate Dominique is on. Very good. So we look forward to another Seeing It Your Way piece in the coming weeks as well. Now, I think given the time, we're going to just delay the NCBI training videos by Miriam Kelly. We might just delay that a week, build the anticipation a little bit more. It's a taster video anyway, to give people an idea of what's coming up in the future on the NCBI YouTube channel, but we'll come back to that definitely in a future live event, so you'll definitely get your taster of what's coming there. But in the meantime, what we'll do is we'll move on to our quick tip for this week, and maybe actually if we can invite Daniel on for a moment. Daniel, what have you got lined up for us for this week's quick tip?
Yeah, we kind of touched on it there in your lovely interview with Dominique. It was great to hear from her. Well done. She was talking about the emojis now that you can use within the Windows operating system. Now, it did come out in the fall's update of Windows 10, which is a couple of years back now at this stage. But it has been slowly but surely improved on over the last few years, and I suppose emojis are getting ever more and more popular. So I've put together a little video just showing briefly in Microsoft Windows 10 how to take advantage of the emoji panel and insert emojis into documents, web pages, emails, wherever you want. You can invoke this keystroke to bring up the emoji panel and how to use it with a screen reader. So I think Sean is queuing up that there, and we'll have a look at that. Yep.
We're going to show you today how to access the emojis in Windows 10. So for today's example, I'm going to open up a Microsoft Word document, and we're going to type in a line and insert a few emojis, and we'll take a look at how that is done. So I'm just going to switch here to Microsoft Word.
Document 1-Word. Microsoft Word document edit multi-line page 1 section 1.
Okay, so we're ready to type.
Cap H. Caps lock off. E L L O space T H E R E N dot space.
Now, to access the emoji panel in Windows 10, we've got to use the Windows key, hold it down, and press the full stop.
Rolling on the floor laughing 1 of 44 level 2.
Okay, so we bring up a new panel that sits over your Microsoft Word document, and you have the first one described to you. So simply navigate around using the arrow keys to get into different emojis.
Not smiling face with heart eyes 2 of 44 level 2. Smiling face with smiling eyes 3 of 44 level 2.
So as you use your arrow keys to navigate around, your screen reader will describe those emojis to you. And when you're happy with the one that you want to insert into your document, you simply press the Enter key. And that gets inserted into your document. Now, to come out of the emoji panel, we simply use the Escape key.
Emoji panel is closed.
And you get a notification that the emoji panel has now been closed. And you can continue typing.
Space. I H O P E hope T H O T that Y O U U O R E R K E E P O N G Q W E L L Y O N T E R R T A E B O R T Y space.
So we'll just do that again. Windows key and the full stop.
Smiling face with smiling eyes 1 of 44 level 2.
And we can also type in here at this point if we wanted to get a different type of emoji. So
Copyright taxi 1 of 91 level 2. Short cake 1 of 3 level 2.
So I've just searched for cake, C-A-K. I didn't even need to type in the full word. And when I'm happy, I just simply press enter on that and it will insert the emoji. And any text that was typed in the background gets converted into the emoji. So I press escape now again to close off the emoji panel.
Emoji panel is closed.
So we have typed up hello there with a smiley face. I hope that you're keeping well after the party, and we've inserted a little emoji of a slice of cake. So for somebody who will get that, it'll be an extra little personal touch. So thank you very much for watching, and don't forget that if you need any assistance with this, please do get in contact with your local NCBI Labs IT trainer who will be able to help you. Thank you very much.
So that's this week's quick tips. With thanks to Daniel, and that's very, very useful one. Nice, handy one, Daniel.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, just and I especially like the search feature in it. You know, where you just start popping in the characters. And for anyone who's not maybe using a screen reader, they will notice that the letters appear in the background. But when you hit the enter key, then on the emoji, it replaces those characters in the background with the emoji. So just to bear in mind, anyone who's actually going to maybe try that out after viewing. Very
good. Yeah, nice, nice quick tip, and very. I suppose it's something that's just a part of our communication all the time now. So it's very useful to make sure that it can be accessible as well. So that's really good. Thank you very much, Daniel, for taking us through this week's quick tip. So hopefully you've enjoyed today's show, and we've obviously been covering kind of very topical things, and a lot of people I think would have concerns with what's been happening over the last week, but good to be able to get a bit more of an understanding of that ransomware attack and the cyber attack that's been going on as well, and how to keep ourselves safe. Now, just a reminder that if you need any technology assistance, you can get support from the Labs team from 9 to 5, Monday to Friday on 1850 92 30 60, or you can email us at labs@ncbi.ie, or if you want to avail of the wider NCBI service, you can call 1850 33 43 53, or you can email info@ncbi.ie. Of course, we always appreciate your support of NCBI as well, and if you'd like to make a donation to help support our services, you can do that through donate.ncbi.ie. And just a reminder as well, we've talked about this a few weeks running now, but NCBI, the Smart Hub project is ongoing at the moment. So if that's something that you feel like you could help out in or help out with as a tester, please do get in touch by emailing smarthub@ncbi.ie. That's smarthub@ncbi.ie. Just before we go, just a reminder of what we'll be talking about in future live events. Of course, we mentioned there we will have that taster of the training videos by Miriam Kelly. We'll have that on next week. And we've also changed our running order a little bit just to cover the ransomware piece that we looked at earlier, but we will still cover in a future live event what's happening in the NCBI Centre in Tala. We'll be sure to come back to that on one of the future live events. We'll also be talking about the speaking email app as well. But as well as that, we're going to look at how to build in accessibility into Word documents, as well as social media as well. So we'll be covering that in future live events. A reminder that our next live event is Tuesday, May 25th at the usual time of 2:30. So that's next Tuesday. We'll be back with you. And of course, if you want to stay up to date with what's happening on our live events, as well as plenty more useful tips and information, you can subscribe to our newsletter on our website, or you can email us at labs@ncbi.ie if you'd like to do that as well. So all that's left for me to do is to thank our panel today. We had JP and Sean and Daniel, and from all the panel here at NCBI Labs and myself, Jude Maher, we want to thank you for listening, and we look forward to having you back next week for another NCBI Labs live event.